Time. I'm live. All right. All right, everyone. I am back. As people start joining me. Live now. Are people watching? One person is watching. I don't know if I'm live or not. Hello, everyone. Okay. I am live, but I'm not showing up on YouTube at all. Here we go. Hello. All right. I actually still do have questions from the other side that I'll take up. Sorry about that. YouTube, once again, I don't know, maybe YouTube doesn't like non-dual conversations because I find myself getting kicked off quite a bit more than I would like. So I'm just going to I'm going to leave this here because I can still get back to some of the questions as people are finding their way back in. Terribly sorry about that. Just all of a sudden, boom, gone. I don't know why that happened. At any rate, let's see. Rohan had a question. I kind of lost my train of thought in terms of the person, but I think you got it. Yeah, that's right. We were pretending to be the ultimate self. We were pretending to be the awakened one, and we were looking at the world through the eyes of oneness, of being the only being. Now forget about the fact that it made sense of being alone and isolated. Put all that for aside. It's just because we can actually do some exercises that will expand those boundaries so that it doesn't feel like that anymore. And that's really what we want to do. We want to find out the parameters of me. And if I find that there are no parameters to me, there's no perimeter, there's no boundaries to me, well then there's no boundaries to you either. Right? Then we're not going to bump up against each other. We are quite literally one, the one and only being. So where within that oneness is there conflict? Is there confusion? Is there disillusionment? Is there disappointment? Where in that is unawakening? Not being awake. Where is it? Right? It's just a thought appearing in awakeness, which is what you are. So anyway, glad I'm back. Let's see. Does that help at all, Rohan? In what sense is limitation real, and does it differ from a sense of lack? Limitation is not real. Lack is the belief in limitation. And the belief in it will cause the experience that makes it feel as if it's actually true. But remember, truth is not thoughts, it is not feelings. Now, a felt sense is closer to the truth than a thought is, which are much more ephemeral. Right? But it's still not the ultimate truth. A truth is true. When I say something being true, I don't mean momentarily true. It's true that the light is red, right? But it's not going to be true in a couple moments, right? It's going to be green, right? Well, that light is still red. It's just not lit, right? You can go off in all sorts of directions, but that's not a truth. For me, the truth is self-existent, changeless, and self-recognizing. So the truth has to be something that is self-evident. It never changes. It's true and it's self-recognized, which means it's true whether I believe it or not. It is not dependent upon anything external for its truthiness. It is completely self-contained. It is the changeless fact. There is a changeless fact about you. Which would mean, of course, that the changeless fact about you and you are one and the same, because it's the truth. When Christ said, you'll know the truth and the truth will set you free, obviously the truth is not a thing that manipulates. Knowing the truth that sets you free means the truth is you are free. You are awake. You are the awakened one. That is the truth. And I'm just inviting you all to stop lying to yourselves. And start actually recognizing that it is the awakened one that is seeing through those eyes. Yeah, he's seeing through the eyes of Greg. It's seeing through the eyes of Rohan. It's, yeah, the whole mystery of it, how that works. Don't even worry about it, right? Pay all the attention to the fact of your conscious awareness, the fact of your sense of being, and the fact that all sorts of conditioning is arising, all sorts of things are arising and subsiding, and that you are the consistent thread to which they arise. Something arises, it absolutely must arise within you, right? It cannot exist outside it. A thought cannot exist outside of you, right? It is not self-sustained. You can exist without any thought, but it can't exist without you. So then, what are you then? You are that awakened one. Period. Now stop thinking of yourself in any other terms. That's it. The practice is simply, right, that's right, I'm not that, I'm this. And notice that even the doubt, the resistance, the thing, yeah, well, you're close, but not quite there, are just thought. That's all conditioning. There's nobody there saying that to you. There's actually no little person in your head speaking to you. It is nothing but conditioned thoughts. That's all it is. That you have mistakenly projected. So you think, this voice in my head, how do I stop this voice in my head? Well, whose voice is it? Who's actually speaking? Nobody. You don't have to stop it. You simply don't pay attention to it anymore. You stop believing it. You stop falling for what it has to say. You go, it's a lot of danger up there. Oh my God, you're right. Oh, this is a problem. And before you know it, you're off to the races. None of that can appear without you. So now, all of your attention goes to the you without any idea about you. What do you actually experience as you? All right. Elsa says, your videos helped me so much. I'm so glad. Jane, how do we find the true self? I love the quote from Nisargadatta, and perhaps it's becoming more clear to you, Jane, as we're talking. Nisargadatta said, having never left the house, you're asking for the way home. The question I have for you is, who is looking for the true self? And the one looking for the true self, can that be anything other than yourself? You see, we have this idea of what the true self is supposed to be, right? Well, it couldn't possibly just be this, right? It's got to be, fireworks. It's, special effects. It's, it's a big production, right? It's this huge thing. It couldn't just be this, right? This can't be oneness, right? This can't be the ultimate. This can't be the absolute. Right? There's the. As they would say in Zen, pine trees in the north, palm trees in the south. It's just this. The young monk who recently had a big awakening asked the Zen master, what is the deepest, most esoteric, most best teachings of Zen? To which the Zen master responded, the jelly donut. It is. This is it. That's the problem. We don't know what oneness is. We don't know what the self is. We have all sorts of ideas of what it is supposed to be. And oh, that's not it. I got to keep going. Who's going? Who's looking? You want to find a self, the true self? Turn around. Look at the one who's seeking. And then you'll find that even the seeking is a story. There's someone seeking. And this beautiful, wonderful Buddha story of the seeker finally finding that is all appearing to who? To you. To the self. To the true self. If it is the true self, right? Remember I said earlier about what truth was? Then it has always been the true self. Whether you knew it or not, whether you believed it or not, whether you were conscious of it or not, it has always been the true self. The true self, in order to be the true self, is always the true self, has always been and will always be the true self, could never, ever be anything else. Right? So, whatever your true self is, you're it right now. So, it is what is looking through the eyes. It is what is hearing these words. Now, there's all sorts of thoughts, right, that say, well, yeah, but I'm not that. I can be that someday. But wait, that's just a thought. And who's that I? Who's that I referring to? I'm not that. The I that isn't that is the image of the separate self. That's giving entity to what in fact is simply a name for a bunch of conditioned responses. Right? Like, I talk about my car. I can point to my car, oh, there's the car, and you go, there's the car. But what is the car with all the piece parts? Nothing. It doesn't exist. There's no essence, there's no sentience, there's no nothing there. It's just a form. And the true self, which is you, has projected on that the sense of self which belongs to who? Does the conditioning think it's somebody? No. Does the robot think it's somebody? Does my car think it's somebody? No, it does not. It has no sense of it. So the one who is even believing in the separate self has to be the true self. The awareness of that has to be the awareness. It's closer than close. It's closer than your breath. It is so close, it's not two. You want to find the true self? Look in the mirror. You're it. Not that the image in the mirror is it, but the one looking at the image in the mirror is it. The image in the mirror is just an image, but the looking, the knowing, the experiencing. Not the idea of someone having an experience, because even that is an experience. It is pure experiencing. That's the self. Now, act like it. Oh, that's what I am. Oh, I'm already that. Now, the moment you say that, and I can feel that it has gone, a little light has gone off. I'm already, I couldn't not be that. If I could not be that, then it's not the true self. It's something else, right? But if I'm not that, I'm aware of it not that, so I'm still here, right? There's this constancy that's going on. So simply stop believing what you're not. Let go of all of these ideas that say you're not, including the really noble ones like I'm seeking to find who I am. Right? I really want to find the true self. And this is the cosmic joke. The true self has gone to look for the true self. Having never left the house, you are asking for the way home. It is oneness that has gone looking for oneness. That's what yeah. I know. Why would it do that? I don't know. I don't know what my next thought's going to be. I don't know why I do anything, actually, right? Why do you do anything? Well, because the impulse was there and it happened, right? And then after the actual action takes place, there's a thought that says, I did that. That's actually the case. It has been neurologically shown. Action happens first, followed by a thought that said, I did that. So nobody did it, right? The conditioned patterns that we identify as a self aren't a self. There's nobody there. The somebody who is there is the one who is aware of the conditioned patterns. That is the self, the true self, the only self. And if it really is your true self, is it not your true self now? It would have to be, wouldn't it? So take that into your heart. Take that deep inside of you. Take that position and don't budge. Just be absolutely adamant. Oh, this is what I am. Now, the habit pattern of thoughts attempting to create and recreate and recreate and recreate this separate self, this person, right, will continue. So what? They can't actually make you that. They can't make a person at all. The person is a projection. They can't actually make an oasis in the desert because there's nothing there. There's just heat and sand and the sun and thirst and, people with hats and camels. That's it. Is that helping, Jane? Thank you for that question. Direct and right to the point. I love it. Carl. Hi, Carl from San Francisco, East Bay, Castro Valley. That's great. I had a place in Fremont for a while. Joseph Capelli says, what about true love? Do you mean in a romantic sense? All of this stuff happens. I mean, I can analyze and say the love between two people, romantic love between two people, is the manifestation of the expression of oneness. And oneness is not flat, it's not empty, it's really rich, it's buoyant, it's unconditional, it's vast. And it manifests itself as two having a relationship. And it manifests itself as two different genders or two different preferences for gender, right? And as such, there's a sense of union, a sense of unity. I mean, that's what Tantra is all about. Yet there's still only one, right? Look around. You see many, right? Well, that's oneness. We keep thinking of oneness. It's oneness. It's got to be this emptiness, and there's nothing there, and it's just everything's happy and holding hands. No, oneness is this. This is oneness, right? How do I? Well, no, because this is what's here. See, I keep this idea of what oneness is supposed to be, and I take everything that is, and I'm trying to cram it into my definition. I go, wait a minute, this is stupid. What's oneness? Well, this. Well, obviously this is it. Oneness is all there is, which of course one would mean oneness is all there is, right? There couldn't be two and still have oneness. That's all there is. Then this is it. Wow. Simple. This must be it. My ideas that it wasn't it have to change. Not it. I completely mistook it. I had this idea that it was supposed to be like this, or the true self was supposed to be like this, and I go looking for it, and I don't find it. Well, duh. How can you possibly find it? You're looking right at it. Want to see oneness? Look in the mirror. Look at your car. Look outside. Look at the sky. It's all oneness. It is all the manifestation of oneness, appearing in oneness, recognized by oneness, made of oneness. It is nothing but that. It is nothing but the true self, the only self, the selfless self. So, I love love. Teresa Hoy. Hi, G. Hi, Teresa. David Elaine. If consciousness modulates through a body mind, like light passing through a prism, and manifests as thoughts and perceptions, can serious mental illness be an obstacle to the realization of the true self? Taking yourself to be the separate self is mental illness. Okay? We're all mentally ill. Thank God it's not an impediment to waking up, or none of us ever would. Right? What is mental illness? Mistaking yourself for something you're not. Doggedly holding on to some kind of belief, even though it's patently not true. Struggling with a sense of identity. just molding yourself into whatever anybody else needs, or doggedly taking a position, inflating the sense of self to make it something really big and important, or completely demeaning it until it's nothing. Does that sound familiar? I mean, take it in extreme cases, and you have what we would call mentally ill people, completely and totally dysfunctional, which simply means they never were able to get into the jar they were supposed to be conditioned in. The jar would fit them into their place in the life. For the most part, I think that people in mental institutions, they don't need doctors, they need a guru. They need a teacher. Because they are experiencing firsthand the turmoil of the instability of the separate self. Most of them, the whole mental illness is that they can't hold on to that separate self. That's what schizophrenia is. I've worked with a couple of people seriously mentally ill, and there's nobody there. They have no sense of identity. Nothing forms enough to even function in the world, right? Which is an important point. You know, when that fall from grace and you become the separate self, it's got to complete itself to the point where you're functional. If it doesn't, you're dysfunctional. And yes, you can wake up, because there's no difference, actually. It's just that one is functional. And hey, look, if I'm functional and regarded as sane in a culture and world that is totally insane, I am not sane, right? I'm functioning in a system that is itself dysfunctional and insane. Look around. It is destroying the earth. Is that sane? And yet I'm functioning in it, you know? You're functioning. Jobs, we're doing stuff, we're making money, we're doing our thing here. It's insane, right? So no, it is not an impediment whatsoever. Why? Because the truth of who you are is the truth of who you are. It doesn't matter whether the separate self is very well adjusted and healthy and functional and doing good things, or it's totally dysfunctional and messed up and sleeping under a bridge. It does not matter. The self is still the self. And eventually it will awaken from that dream. We're not here to make better dreams. We're not here to say, oh, well, this dream he can awaken from, but this dream he can't awaken from. It's a dream. The content is not important. What's important is, who are you? Who is the you? Who is the actual self? That should answer it for you, Dave. Regarding the above, thinking or self-inquiry appears to take place at the level of mind. Yes, but it doesn't have to. That's the important thing. You know, we're doing it now. We all have pretty good intellectual equipment, so we're using it, right? I have these tools available at my disposal. I've got a good vocabulary. I've got information and stuff. So it's good. I can use this as a tool. I don't have to. And in fact, Ramana Maharshi didn't speak that much. People would just come and sit in his presence. That's actually the best satsang, right? Now, and I have, on occasion, just been able to sit with somebody. Now, there's no magic here. Just both of us recognizing together what the truth is, and something happens. That's actually what's happening. It is really the field of awareness. Remember, it's not me dispensing information or knowledge or wisdom to you, right? There's no me doing that. It appears that way because the formless self always expresses itself as a form. Otherwise, there's no expression, right? Music has to have a song, or it doesn't appear as though there's any music. There is, of course. The potential is always there. So who's speaking to you right now? Pure awareness. Who's hearing it? Pure awareness. Why is there a recognition of truth? Because awareness recognizes itself. It's like, oh yeah, that's true. How do you know? Because it's me. Is this getting clear? So yes, we're using it at the level of mind because we have access to that. Somebody else not. Somebody else not. You can't appeal at that level. That's why there are many, many different paths. But it's not really intellectual. If there's intellectual honesty, if there's just honesty, a willingness to investigate assumptions, it does not take a lot of brain power. This isn't rocket science. It really isn't. But it does require an honesty. It requires a willingness to look and see how tenaciously that sense of separate self wants to hold on. It's very active, right? I mean, it's nothing real. There's nobody actually there except patterns. And our own habit of a pattern happening, an event taking place, a reaction in the system, and immediately the sense of a self taking ownership of that, interpreting it, not liking it, resisting, or, or getting attached to it, is part of the conditioning. And that's the part we simply haven't seen through. So we say, ah, I've been triggered. No, you have not. You are experiencing the sense of self, right? That is the trigger. And the sense of I saying, I am that. All of that is being perceived by the actual self. None of those are self-perceiving. None of those are sentient or self-aware. Right? Is this getting clear, guys? Shaika? Oh, I think it's Shaika. No, I can't say her name. I'm sorry. Hi, G. Can you tell me, why do all the spiritual gurus say that you are the universe? What does it mean by that? Thank you. That's a great question. And I think I'm going to do a class. I haven't done a class in a while. I'm going to do a class. And it's called Oneness, You Are the Universe. It's a pointer, okay? First up, take this, it's a pointer. Because if you take you, and when I say the word you think I'm referring to the separate self, well then, no, you're not. That's like the people who are saying, I get it, there's no ego, I am God. And people will say that. And that's when the Zen stick comes out, whack. Because that's the ego trying to usurp what it doesn't belong to. Only God can say I am God, right? So that you cannot. Matter of fact, that you can't actually say anything. It's just thoughts in the head, which then become a you, and you say, ah, I am that. But if we just stop for a second and look, we think of this huge, big universe. It's vast, and the black holes and the galaxies and all this beautiful and mysterious and wonderful stuff, right? And then there's a sense of me. There's me, and then there's the universe. I loved it, in the movie The Secret. There was the genie of the universe, and you just had to ask the genie of the universe, and he would just give you what it is you requested, if you believed and allowed and all of that kind of stuff. And you'll hear people talk about that, the universe, like almost like God. It's like, the universe, gave me this, right? Now notice that built into that is a sense of me and the universe. There's a sense of separation there, isn't there? But where's the actual separation? Are you not in the universe? I mean, if you look at the whole functioning, isn't what you call you part of this huge singular functioning? Just like you call me, you'd call you this body. When you look, you can't find a you in the body. It's this incredibly complex functioning. Trillions upon trillions of cells, quadrillions upon quadrillions of atoms, thousands of processes and chemicals and organs and all sorts of stuff going on, and we call that me. Now so how do you separate the two? Take this body then, and it doesn't function by itself. It's like saying this chair would exist without me. The chair only exists because I need a chair to sit down, because I want to sit down. Closed. They only are here because they keep me warm, and they look the way they do to conform to this shape. I have lungs. Why? Well, because this whole process uses air, right? And so now there's this relationship with the air. Well, oh, okay. My lungs collect air, and then they hand it off to the blood, which then hands it off to other cells and things. There's this very complex thing happening. And so somehow I say, well, I end here, right? And there's the air out there. But wait a minute. The air is the oxygen air is handing it off because it got it from the tree, right? It got it. And just like the blood in my body, it's handing off to me the oxygen to the lungs, which are then handing off the blood, which is then hanging off the cells, which is turning around and giving back its garbage, it's recycling, right? Which comes back up and out of the lungs, which the air then dutifully hands over to the tree. So how can I possibly think of myself without thinking of the tree? Right? So all of a sudden, oh, I'm not just this, I'm this. Now just keep going. Because the tree is there, and there goes the earth there. The earth, there's only sun there. The sun, there's the only... All of it. It's one huge functioning. So even on that level, you can see you are the universe. And we just had this idea of somehow there's us and the universe. We say, well, there's me, and then there's life. Life happened to me. You are life. That's all this is life. All of this functioning is life. Can you see the sense of separation is completely imaginary? It doesn't actually exist. Are you following? Are you following that? Shoika? Sorry, about pronouncing your name. Is that clear? So we really have to challenge when we see that, oh my God, I have been thinking of myself as separate, when in fact, obviously, it's the whole universe. It's a single functioning. Just the way I don't identify myself with my arm or my stomach, right? Identify with the entire thing. Well, keep going. Identify with the whole thing then. Because this does not exist and can't function without that. This can't function without the sunlight, right? I mean, and the sun can't function without I don't know, whatever makes up the sun happen, right? And it too is on its I mean, and it too is the result of some kind of a process. It's a much longer time frame than we're used to, but it's the same thing, isn't it? So when you really think, you'll see that our habit of thought is to constantly be making reference to, well, how can I possibly be the universe? Well, how can you not be? And now you start challenging that thought that keeps occurring. But once you see it, you say, oh, of course I am. What else could I possibly be? Then every time the thought pops up, and it will pop up again because it's a habit, it's a machine, it's just grinding along, you don't believe it anymore. You go, oh, okay, no, I get it. There's the habit. No. And you just, no, it's not true. It's not true. That I that it's talking about isn't talking about me. It's a very limited thing. It's conformed to this particular form, and that even isn't true. It's like saying, I am my nose, right? That's it, just my nose. Or, I am my frontal lobe. That's it, that's all I am, right? Where did that come from, right? Okay, anyway, moving on. Chris Gills. Hello, GP. Feeling lack of interest in people. Is this normal? Yep. Do you think this lack of interest will stay? Nope. Realization of the self now there is an uninterest in people? No, of course not. Of course not. What's happening, though, is there is a shift taking place as the sense of a separate self, or the egoic mind, is less dominant. You're going to become more expansive. The things you liked before, you're not going to like anymore because you're not that anymore, right? But you're not just morphing into a different that has different likes, which is what most people do. You are morphing out of morphing. You are stepping out of all of it, which means that you're going to still enjoy everything that Chris enjoys, but you're going to know you're not Chris. There's a Chrisness, right? Like music is a great example, because with music, you play music. Here, let me do this, right? You hear that sound, right? Now you can't touch that sound. You can't do anything. It's very ephemeral. You can clearly identify it has an impact. If you heard it again, you say, that's that. That's the crystal bowl, the key of D. Okay, great, right? That's a nice way to identify it, but it's going to fade now and it's going to be gone. Just poof, gone, right? I just completely lost my train of thought. So this very ephemeral thing arises temporarily and then just dissolves. That temporary thing that arises is a sense of self. It draws all of its sense of identity from its relationship with something else. And so I hit this thing again, sound the D. If I sing an A, a fifth above it, it'll have a certain kind of character, right? But then if I just sign the A by itself, it's not going to have that character. Putting the things in combination creates a sense of a kind of a unique signature. And of course, every form has a uniqueness about it. So what you call Chris is a very unique combination of energy, and it's beautiful and it's wonderful, and you'll thoroughly enjoy it. And it, as Chris, will enter into relationships with other things, like you're entering a relationship with me right now. And so a third element is now being created, like the harmony between two notes. This is being created. We're making a song right now, right? But neither, but that note itself is just kind of transient. The note that you would call Chris. So there's no Chris there. There's not an entity Chris. There's a Chrisness. You know, like you take all the notes and you put them together in a certain form, and you get Beethoven's Ninth, right? Put them together in another form, you get the blue, you get blues, right? Put it together in another form, and you get some kind of rhythm or some, a disco or something, right? Same stuff, all the same stuff, kind of recombining temporarily, making this form, and it's got a character to it, doesn't it? And then it dissolves. And then something else comes in, something equally beautiful and wonderful emerges, and then it dissolves. The only problem is that we think that this is what we are and we want to hold on to it, and of course we can't. And there's nobody there. We can identify, I can refer to Chris. What I will be referring to is the Chrisness, right? The unique flavor that oneness is assuming, that oneness is experiencing. Is that helping you, Chris? So there's a shift that's going to take place as the sense of identity moves out of identification with something that doesn't actually exist into what actually does exist. All of this, of course, is going to change and morph, and what was interesting once won't be interesting anymore, and you'll find yourself probably talking less at times, talking more at other times. All of your relationships will shift, all of them, because you're not there anymore. The you that was in the relationships isn't there. So don't worry about it. You can't help but be interested in others, especially when they're no longer others, they're you, because that's love. And you'll also find that those who you thought were just completely uninteresting become interesting. It's okay. It's okay, brother. You're good. You're fine. You're fine. Let me check over here. Let's see what we got going on here. Oh, somebody just donated me some money. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, Mitra has joined us. Josh, yep, I'm back. I don't know what happened, by the way. It just went, it tried to reconnect and it couldn't. Might have been a burp in the internet system here. It might have been YouTube again. I can actually, looking on my screen now, I'm seeing that the image on the screen is not nearly as good. So they have, it looks like they've stepped it down. Maybe I can, whoa, it's like way down. Oh, okay, I just upped it. Okay, cool. Very good. All right, hi everybody, hi, yes, I'm back. Got live chat. My question is how to find my true self. Oh, I got all of the questions back here? I did, look at that. Oh, happy Father's Day. Thank you, Inner Aesthetics. Walt, why is there this longing to known? Why ask even why? Is this all just a facade to satiate the mind? Yes and no. Now I say yes because the entire thing, the dreaming, the waking up, the falling asleep, all of it is an image being viewed by the true, changeless, timeless self. All of it. Right? But I have found that if people just kind of push that, well, there's nothing there, there's no one here, there's nothing to see, there's no one to know, there's no one to wake up, there's no one to be asleep, is just confusing as hell to most people. Very few people can grasp that. And frankly, the ones that kind of expound that mostly, I don't feel a lot of love and compassion from it. It's kind of the Advaita or the Vedanta without the Tantra. It's kind of like, it's kind of like all masculine, no feminine, which is not the approach that I take. My question to you would simply be, and in Zen they would do, are you suffering? Somebody say, I get it, and the Zen master would hit him upside the head, right? Because it's not that there isn't that, and it's not that there is, right? If you take the absolute position, you're as wrong as if you take the relative position. It is neither this nor that. It neither exists nor it does not exist. The only thing we're concerned about, where the rubber meets the road, the thing that makes this not an intellectual exercise is, are you suffering? Is there a sense of suffering? If there's a sense of suffering, then something's off. Then you know that awakeness, the true self, has identified with the apparition self, the mirage self. We know it because we know suffering. Who knows suffering? Well, you do. Genuine consciousness knows it, recognizes it, and of course looks for the remedy for it, and discovers that the remedy is to recognize that you are the true self, not the separate self, and that the problems, the suffering, the disillusionment, the disappointment, all belongs to the separate self, not to you. So you can use that as a measurement. So it isn't just your head, because if it's just in your head, why am I even doing all of this stuff? You'll find that that's a nice place for the ego to hide and try to suppress the uncomfortable feeling that's going on. That longing to know is the true self, longing for itself. It is turning its own attention, not your attention, because you as the separate self don't exist, right? You're not. There's nobody there. It's turning the oneness, the one, the awakened one, is turning its attention back towards itself. It's the only way I know how to describe it. You don't wake up. As Muji puts it, the one who starts the inquiry does not finish the inquiry, but is finished by the inquiry. The guy in the dream does not wake up. You have to realize you're not the guy in the dream. Right? That's it. That's all you have to do. Right? And yes, you have to do that. The truth is true whether you believe it or not. But our experience depends on where our attention goes and what we believe. So it becomes conscious awareness. I really don't know how else to describe it. I could go into absolute terms, and even what I just said would be a relative thing. All that does is confuse, right? Are you experiencing bliss? If the answer is yes, I am. Do you have arguments with what's happening right now in any given moment? If the answer is no, you're good. Right? That is bliss, by the way. It's not a state of perpetual euphoria. It's a state of no argument. It's just, Krishnamurti was asked what his secret is. He said, I don't mind what happens. That's it. That's all there is to it. So if there is a feeling inside that you do mind what's happening, and you do, because why have all this knowing? Why do I have to go there? Why is this even here? Right? Well, there's a sense of discomfort there. Well, then stop, take a step back, and simply look at it. Oh, it's simply something that's arising. Now, if I don't identify, if I don't give it a person, if I don't give it a place, if I just see it as a functioning of life as a whole, and it's not personal, there's no place for it to stick. It'll rise, it'll do its thing, and it'll completely subside back into nothingness. That is the void, that is the emptiness, which is not nothingness, it just appears to be that way. From out of it arises everything, and it is the potential for everything. So thank you for that, Waltz. Is that helpful? I need to go more into that. Rohan, this inquiry seems to lead to experiencing more and more subtler mental phenomena and never experiencing the experience itself. Well, that's because you're looking for it to be an experience. It isn't an experience. Yes, It'll become increasingly nuanced and subtle and and shaded and beautiful, subtler and subtler and subtler. But that's just an experience, and that goes on forever. I mean, it continues to get increasingly rarefied, right? It doesn't stop. It's like, whoa, are you kidding? Yes, it's like infinite expansion, right? But you're not an experience. You're the experiencer. And the experiencer cannot be experienced. Experience, by definition, requires two. Oneness had to invent two-ness in order to experience itself. And so there's this sense of two-ness. But there isn't actually two. The experiencer and what is being experienced are in fact one. Right? Like the movie, right now, me on your video screen, right? Moving around and doing a bunch of stuff and making sounds and the like, right? Very active, right? Am I different from the screen? I'm one with the screen, aren't I? And the screen, of course, can produce infinite number of forms. There's no limits on it. It's not stuck with this image. Thank God for the poor screen. It's not stuck with this image. And so when you're looking at me, you're looking at the screen. You cannot separate the two. Right? So the experiencer, the ultimate absolute experiencer, is utter emptiness, silence. Like the void. You are not an experience. Right? I mean, if you really want to get even more subtle, want to look even really closer, in the beginning when I mentioned just that sense of being, we all have that sense of being. Well, who's aware of that sense of being? You notice that there's something so subtle that it's indetectable. It has to be indetectable. If something's detectable, there's some degree of experiencing. But you cannot experience the experiencing. You just are the experiencing. You're aware of experiencing. But that awareness that is aware of experiencing, you cannot be aware of that as subject and object. You can only be aware of that existentially, non-phenomenally. I am that. And what is that? I have no idea. That's really all you can say. I don't know. I can't have an idea because before any idea could emerge, that had to be there first, didn't it? So it's prior to thought. It's prior to concepts. It's prior to all definitions, which is why you can't think it. You can't know it because it's prior to knowledge. So you can just be it. Are you not? Do you not exist? Are you not? Of course you are. That's it. That's all there is to it. And that sense of being, just that sense of existence, which is just the first ripple on the ocean of existence, the being that is you, not just an appearance of you, but is you, that is unknowable. But yet, you're hearing my words, aren't you? You're seeing the picture and the screen. Even though you have no idea what is actually seeing the picture and the screen. All you know is that because it's one, somehow the picture and the screen are in this oneness. They're part of this oneness. I hope that helps. Jane says, wow, yes, I am that I am my true self here now. Yes, yes, yes. Wow, indeed, wow. It's the obvious. Well, where else would the true self be? Like there's another true self. My true self is over there somewhere? Well, then what the heck's this? What, where am I? Where am I? I mean, really? Rohan says, eating a jelly donut right now. There you go. That's it. That's the secret of Zen. Is that good or what? Um, October Paul says, is there a necessity to drop off all obscurations to pure consciousness? One of the telltale signs of enlightenment is the end of suffering. This incarnation experiences separation and suffering. Okay, so you simply start to examine it, right? You are experiencing separation and suffering. Okay, now what is the actual nature of that experience? Right? What we need to do is divide between what we're experiencing, which we call separation, suffering, and the one experiencing it. So break it down. What is the sense of separation? The sense of separation is a thought, right? It's the idea that myself and what I am looking at are different, that I end here, right? And that then somehow this thing out here, I know it, but I can only know it in here, and I can only know it from my perspective. I can't actually know it. And then I interpret it. It's dangerous. It's better than me. It's less than me. But all of this is based on this fundamental idea that I'm experiencing separation, right? If the thought is there that we're separate, then I'm going to be experiencing separation, right? But if that thought of separation is gone, are you experiencing separation? No. You're simply experiencing. But the thought of separation says, I'm experiencing separation. How do I get rid of the separation? You don't have to. There isn't any separation. There's only the thought of it. The child does not experience separation. A thought has to emerge and get believed so that now there's a sense of separation, an interpretation of what is being experienced as if there was separation. There isn't. That sense of separation is what gives rise to suffering. And a sense of being somebody. So now I've got to try to define what I am, right? Without the sense of separation, I don't need to define it. What am I? This, that. I just am. But the moment a line gets drawn, I have to define myself. Well, how do I do that? Well, I compare it with this. I look at this. I'm a boy. I'm a boy. Look at that. How do I know what a boy? Oh, good. That's a girl. Oh, we're different. Oh, I'm not that now. Okay, so now I've just gotten confined into boy feelings and boy thoughts and boy activities and boy colors, right? And she's boy girl clothes and girl hair and right? And all of a sudden now I'm here. Now am I really here? No, this is completely made up. This is completely arbitrary. Yeah, there's characteristics that are going on. But without the sense of separation, there can be no suffering because there's no me to define, right? There's no me to, or other to compare anything to, right? Now again, there isn't a separation. The sense of separation is interpreting experience as if we were separate and then seeks to unify. It seeks the yoga, right? To unify. Whereas the direct path simply says, there isn't any separation. You don't have to unify anything because nothing was separated in the first place. That's the illusion. You eliminate the sense of separation and suddenly there isn't any. You don't see things as being separate from you anymore and somehow having to have a reunion. That was an illusion. That was a spell cast over. Oh, I'm not that at all. Right? So it's a really important distinction because somehow we think that all of this is going to shift and change, right? Oh, I won't feel like I'm separate anymore. Oh, things aren't separate. It feels so separate. It only feels separate because the belief is there that it's separate. That's the only reason. Take that away, and the very same thing that you thought was separate won't appear separate anymore. Is that clear? Very good evening from Norway. get those thumbs up, everyone. Thank you. And Vest, thank you for your donation. I got to find somebody to show me how to actually. I've had several people give me donations here, and I'm really grateful for it. It helps keep this on the air and free. But I don't know how to get the money out of it. I guess I have to get a Google Wallet or something like that. I don't have one of those. I'm technologically competent. It's not like I'm just some old guy who doesn't know how to work a computer. But I don't actually know how to do this because I do everything on a Mac. So if somebody wants to kind of send me some instructions, how do I actually get access to the money that people have donated, I'd be very appreciative. Chrissy says, love it, G, on fire. Truth burns it all up eventually. Amen, my girl. Amen. Dave and Elaine, thanks, GP, for your very clear and comprehensive answer to the earlier question. You're very welcome. Josh says, beautiful. David Smith says, hello, G. Great satsang as always. Who chooses in the universe? It can't be random, I would guess, since you cannot generate random numbers mathematically. Very, very good. So is all of this predestined? Which kind of choice? What are you doing? Red the Tamer. Hi, what are you doing? Okay, Red. All right, I'm going to take Dave. Is all of this predestined, and who chooses? This is a real mysterious one for a lot of people. You hear it in Vedanta, Advaita circles, and it can sound very, very confusing. No one chooses. As I mentioned before, this has been neurologically proven to be a fact. This is a fact, folks. This is not a nice idea. An action takes place, and just a split second later, it's cognized by the mind, and the thought, I did that, arises. Now, if you follow any thought back to where it came from, you will, I look for the one choosing. There's a thought that says, I chose that. Right? There is a thought that arises between two thoughts, right? Two thoughts, competing thoughts. I'll do this, do that. Choose this, choose that. And then another thought comes along and says this, and off the organism goes. Off the body mind goes. Right? And then I chose that, another thought. Right? What's actually driving this? No one. No, it's not random. Look around. It's not random. Everything is extremely formed. It's organized. I mean, it's brilliantly organized. It's doing things in lockstep. I mean, all of the things that came together to make this beautiful sounding bowl, the things that came together to make this beautiful orchid, which I'm trying to learn how to take good care of so it stays alive. So without a chooser, there's no predestination. In order for there to be predestination, there's got to be somebody or a group of people or something sitting there planning what's going to happen. And that's, of course, what we do. We take the sense of a separate self, and because the separate self always feels small and lacking and fearful, it projects all the really great qualities out there onto what it then names God, this super being, this one who knows everything, right? Well, there's so much to know. Somebody must know it all. Okay, there's this super being that knows it all, knows everything that's going to happen, past, present, and future, and even predestines what it's going to be. There's no such thing. That is a projection of the mind onto the great mystery. Where does this stuff come from? It comes from here. From where does it arise? It arises out of emptiness. Not nothingness, because if it was really nothing, nothing could arise, right? So it's not nothingness. It appears to the mind to be nothingness because it can't see anything. There are no objects there yet. But then an object forms. There's a theory that everything we experience is in fact space itself. That space condenses or coagulates, congeals into a form, and then dissolves back into space. So nothing makes a something and then returns back to nothing. Now, intellectually, that's just like, I can't wrap my hands around it. But if that nothing isn't nothing, it's the potential for everything. And as the potential for everything, it itself has no particular form or shape. Because form and shape arises in it. And when it arises, in order for it to be a shape, there's got to be this and something else. A duality has to arise. In Buddhism, they call it dependent arising. You can't have one thing arise by itself. Everything arises as a whole universe. In fact, I can see that the universe is one functioning arising. So it's not random, right? That is, in the sense that it is not just happenstance. If it was happenstance, you'd look around the universe and you wouldn't see form everywhere. Even something like a nebula, where you say that's really nebulous, right? Where stars are born has this, we project different, the horsehead nebula and different kinds of shapes and that sort of thing. But it is, in fact, the perfect form for giving birth to stars. It is exactly what it's supposed to be. Yeah, or a cloud, right? It's exactly what it's supposed to be. It is a form. Yeah, some forms are very clear and defined and sharp, and others are much more amorphous, or like music, totally amorphous, right? Yet it is a form. Look around. There is no randomness. But if you look at randomness as something as being that there's either total randomness, chaos, shit just happens, or there's somebody deciding, right? But let's look at that for a second. Okay, somebody's deciding this, which would be like predestination or non-randomness, right? That means if somebody's going to decide what my next thought is going to be, right? Well, in order to decide what my next thought's going to be, I have to know what it is before I have it. I mean, really, look at it. What I'm presenting to you is a third option that is baffling to the mind, right? Nobody is choosing, but choosing thoughts arise, right? It is not random. Whatever arises is a recognizable form. It's a thing. That is, it's a form. It's got definition. It's got isness about it, right? Until it, evaporates back in. So it's not random. It's not accidental, right? In that sense. But it also isn't predestined. I can't find any evidence of somebody sitting there going, well, this is what's going to happen next, right? You're going to have this thought. I mean, and if it's predestination, it had to be everything, right? Which means something planned in advance that I'm going to do this. So I'm just basically acting out the script in a movie. There's nothing spontaneous going on here. All of that gets wrapped up into the idea of time. Right? Everything that's happening, what's happening right now in this moment, is a spontaneous arising right from the heart of reality. The one, the awakened one. It is all arising spontaneously. It's not planning, it's not making stuff up, but because of its own infinite nature of internal harmony and love, what arises is harmonious, it is organized, it is not random, it is formed, it is focused, it is purposeful. But it is now. It didn't exist a second ago. Just like the screen on your computer, right? It's just refreshing so fast that it looks like it's a continuous picture. It isn't. It is a picture being rewritten 60 times a second. The little lights, 60 times a second, those little lights are lighting up and going out. So it's the illusion of continuity, but in fact, this moment is constantly being generated. Right? If you ask on a practical example, if you listen to a good musician who improvises, very common, obviously in jazz. That's the heart and soul of jazz is improvisation. Is it random when you listen to it? Is it random? It's just no. There's definite order and form. Is it predestined? Nope. If it was, it wouldn't be improvisation. Are they choosing it? No, they're not. It's happening too fast. It's moving through them too quickly. They can't possibly be choosing it. When I'm answering questions like this, the thoughts are just coming, right? The ideas are coming. There's no editor in the middle. I'm not deciding which ones. I'm not planning this group of thoughts, right? Reviewing them, and so it's all just happening right now, right in this fact. I don't know what the next one's going to be. It may be a gem. It may be just fall completely flat on its face. Maybe the great metaphor of all time. It may leave you all going, huh? What the hell is he talking about? I don't know, right? Right? The whole phenomena of that we call channeling. We believe it's coming from some other being somewhere because we can't imagine it just coming out of nothing, which is exactly what it's doing. It is coming out of emptiness. And emptiness is the best word for it. Emptiness as pure, vast potential. So I hope that answers it for both you guys. So it's not predestined. No. There's the other possibility, right? Yeah, I always have to see the mind. That's all the mind can know. It's predestined, it's chosen, or it's random. Oh, there's another possibility. Yep, that it is a spontaneous arising out of the harmonious center of the universe, and that this second, this microsecond, is being generated like the speed of the refresh rate on a screen on your computer. Let's see. Arby, hello, Arby. Hi, GP. I feel like I'm suppressing how I feel at this moment. If I want to feel as if I already have what I desire, I feel conflicting emotions internally, but I don't know what to do. A quick second here. Sorry. I had to make sure the door is shut. My granddaughter will be home any moment. Could be a little bit of screaming going on. I feel at this moment that I want to feel as if I already have what I desire. Okay, I'm gonna do the non-dual take on this. I'm not gonna go the direction of manifestation and focus of attention and all that kind of stuff. One of the problems with the whole manifestation thing is that the mind just cannot accept that I have something before I see it. It takes an enormous amount of effort to do that. Cannot see things in their pure potential. That the very thought I have of a desire for something is in fact it. It's the essence of it. And without that thought, there'd be no desire for it, so there'd be nothing to call it in. The problem with any desire when it arises is it runs into our conditioning, and our conditioning is the separate self, and the separate self is lack. Right? So a desire arises, and immediately there's a feeling that there's me here, the thing I'm desiring is over there, and somehow I've got to figure out how to bridge that gap. The teaching of the law of attraction are the ways in which you can attract. You raise your vibrational set point, it matches the vibration of this, and, like two lovebirds, they eventually find themselves in this ocean, vast ocean. But you can see at the heart of that is the sense of a separation. There's a sense of separation between me and what I desire, which means your view of the universe is that there's me and there's a universe. Forget about trying to hold the desire as if you already had it, and instead break down the wall that makes you think that you are not the same as the universe. That somehow there's you, and then there's the universe, and all the stuff I need, and it's out there somewhere. See if you can break that wall down. Take down the illusion of separation, because that's all it comes from. Then you'll see that the arising of a desire and the thing are one and the same. You can't have one without the other. The appearance of the desire is the appearance of the thing. At that point, first off, there's no sense of desire has a completely different meaning because the desire doesn't belong to someone. Desire arises and there's no separate self to grab it. Oh, that's my desire. And then project on that desire, I have that. If I don't have that, I'm not going to be happy. Oh, how do I get it? Oh my God, it's all the way over there. What am I going to do? I don't have the resource. I don't have the money. I don't know the people. I don't have the connection. I don't this, right? On and on and on it goes. All of that's a fabrication of the mind based on the sense of a separate self. You're not the separate self. The whole manifestation thing will be difficult and struggle, and only a few will be able to do it until that sense of a separate self is put to rest. That's why I teach this, and not just, holding the good thought. because because it because who's holding the good thought? As long as I think I'm that separate self, I will experience suffering and lack. There's no way around it, because the separate self is separate by definition. So as long as I believe that that's who I am, my desires are always going to cause me more suffering than pleasure. When I know who I am, desires cause me pleasure, whether I fulfill them or not. Because the experience of the desire is simply the experience of being alive. It's the experience of being awake. It's the experience of being consciousness. Right? And the fulfillment of it, well, it's not my desire. It doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the universe. It belongs to life. I'm just here witnessing it. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. If it doesn't, well, okay. It's like my team lost last night, right? Next time they win, yay, it's wonderful. My team lost. What do? I'm going to gross around, right? It's like, oh, gee, well, that's too bad. Well, what's next, right? I mean, it's gone. Poof, it's gone in a moment. So the desire, I want to win, I want to win. Oh, they didn't win. But who cares, right? A strong attachment. There's nobody there to have a strong attachment to anything. And so all of it changed. The entire complexion changes, right? When you ask the question about holding on to your desires, and from the point of view of the separate self, I say, boy, you got a big job ahead of you. You are fighting against a mountain of conditioning and an even bigger mountain of cultural bias. And yes, there are a few people that have become luminaries, but I know a lot of the people, luminaries in the whole law of attraction thing, and it's not what you think it is. It's the result of a lot of hard work and effort, and there's all sorts of stuff that go into it, and the focus of attention. Not that there's anything wrong with focusing your attention. Of course, it's extremely powerful. I'm just inviting you to put your attention not on trying to fulfill the desire, but go a couple of levels down to say, well, where's this desire coming from, and where's the suffering coming from? If the suffering was inherent in the desire, the desire that arose in anybody should create the same suffering, but it doesn't. In some people, the desire is there. It's like, oh, it's great. Some people, I don't even care. The desire barely even squeaks the surface because there's nobody there who cares about it. Others, it's the most, I gotta have it. It's the most important thing. There's nothing inherent in the desire itself. It's the setting in which it arises. So forget the desire. Forget the attracting it. Forget trying to think, I've already got it, right? Ask who the I is that's trying to say, I already have it. And you'll find a sense of a separate self doing everything it possibly can to become not separate. Everything it possibly can to satisfy itself. And you can't satisfy it because it doesn't exist. It exists only as a thought projected on life itself, right? Desire is life. You have a desire to eat. Is that your personal desire? No, it's the desire of life. The desire to have sex isn't a personal possession. Sorry, we all have it, right? It's not, oh, look at the desire I have. No, it's a desire of life manifesting in this body, and you're experiencing it. Now, if it belongs to life and not me, life can take care of it. And I'm fine. As Nisargadatta said after his enlightenment, I leave my human life to fulfill its destiny. I remain as I am. And again he said, I am that principle that witnesses the birth and dissolution of the universe. Does that answer it for you, Arby? And Kaufman says, hi Anne, find peace in I am thankful for everything and disturbed by nothing whatsoever. Oh, I like that. Yeah, that's a story. I mentioned that story. I'll tell that story here too, because it's just a beautiful story. And it's such a wonderful way to approach life, to surrender to this truth of who you actually are. And it was I may have told it on Satsang, but if I have, forgive me. I tell so many stories that I can't remember where I told what. But at any rate, this wonderful, wise Buddhist woman, lived alone, kind of an isolated area, a very enlightened woman. The people would come all around to ask for her advice on things. And one particular monk who had been diligently meditating and inquiring for a very long time came to her and said, I'm not getting anywhere. She said, well, here's a practice I want you to do. Every morning, every day, and every time you remember it, every time you think of it, you simply say, thanks for everything. I have no complaint whatsoever. He said, okay, I'm going to do that. A year later, he comes back, and he says to her, I've been doing exactly what you say. I've been doing it every single day. I've been very vigilant. I haven't missed a day. He said, I'm still not getting anywhere. And so she says to him, thanks for everything. I have no complaint whatsoever. Boom. He had his enlightenment. Ah, right. Even this. The mind wants to turn it into a problem. The person, the psychological mind, the person, the ego, the false self, all the same, right? All referring to exactly the same thing. The imaginary mirage self, right? Makes a problem. Oh, it shouldn't be like this. And it's such a beautiful way to go, well, thanks for everything. I have no complaint whatsoever. Why shouldn't it be like that? Because I said so. Who said so? The separate self says so. I don't want this. I want to be different. Right? This finite, limited, constricted, petty, deciding what's supposed to be happening in the universe. Why don't we let the universe decide what's happening in the universe, for lack of a better word? Let's just let happen what's happening and assume that if it's happening, that's what's supposed to be happening. And harmonize with that. That's what that does. Thanks for everything. I have no complaint whatsoever. Harmonizes with what is. It steps out of the argument that the egoic mind has. And that is stepping in a very practical, everyday way into the true self, which of course has no argument with any. How could you possibly argue with being the true self? How do you argue with being the universe? Thank you, Anne. John David, we're all different expressions. Whoops, missed word. Ugh. Come on back. Different expressions of the one reality, different songs of one singer, different dances of one dancer, different paintings, but the painter is one. Unknown, yes. And the painter is unknown. I like the fact that Anne was unknown. It wasn't referring to the same thing. But the actual painter is unknowable. The true self, the ultimate self, cannot be known. It's not an object that can be known. That is the ultimate mystery. That's why it's such a blank canvas on which the mind is forever projecting things, because there's not a thing there. There's no thing there. There is just being. It's like you smell the perfume, but you can't find the flower. You know there's a flower, you just can't find it. Shiraz Khan, hello GP and everybody, love, all blessings. Thank you, hello Shiraz. Dr. David Maloney, hi G, A Course in Miracles talks about the sense of guilt we hold about the seeming separation. Do you feel undoing the guilt is the main thing we need to focus on? Thank you for being you. You're very welcome, David. No, because the sense of guilt is secondary. Again, this is one of the things that a lot of spiritual practice, a lot of religious practice, personal development do. They assume the one who is guilty, the one who's having the experience of guilt, and focus on trying to remove the guilt from the one who's experiencing it. You can't. The one experience is the guilt. The guilt is completely intertwined with it, right? The only way to eliminate the guilt is to eliminate the guilty party. That is, the sense of being a separate self. Right? As long as you're holding this idea of being a separate self, there will be guilt and shame. You can't help it because it's not enough. It is inadequate. It doesn't have everything what it needs. It is dependent. It is vulnerable. It is all of those things, right? Except it doesn't exist at all, except as a thought. So as long as there's a sense of separate self, there will be a sense of suffering, a sense of guilt, a sense of shame, a sense of lack, a sense of inadequacy, of not being enough. You can't help it. It's innate to it. The sense of not being enough is the very heart and soul of the egoic mind. Unhappiness is the egoic mind, just like happiness is the true self. Right? You can't take that and make it not feel guilty, right? You can't do it. The two are one, right? It's like trying to remove the fragrance and leave the flower, right? You can't do it. The two are one, right? So you have to cut the thing off at the roots. You have to pull it out by the roots. Right? That's the only way you can do it. And this is one of the problems that even the new thought, like Course in Miracles and the stuff, because I practiced, not A Course in Miracles, but the whole metaphysical approach for a long time. I was even pretty good at it as a healer and the like, right? But it was far. It was like I did not understand why things like this recur until finally it's like, it's you. You can't separate those two, right? You can't conjure up the devil and then ask him to behave. He's not going to do it, right? You cannot separate the characteristics of the separate self from the separate self. It is guilt. It is shame. It is lack. It is fear. It is all those things, right? So you cannot take it and make it into a good separate self, an awake separate self, a happy separate self, a guiltless. You can't do it. They are one. You have to remove the separate self. Then lack goes away, guilt goes away, fear goes, all that gone, because there's nothing there now to support him. You've pulled it out by the roots. Does that answer your question there, David? From a psychological point of view, ridding yourself of guilt, yes, it's a big deal. From a personal development point of view, yes, it's a big deal. What the non-dual approach shows is that it's an endless deal, that it never stops. It'll keep regenerating it because it's in the nature of the separate self itself. It's, I use the example of peeling back the onion, right? The only value for that metaphor is when you peel it back, you find there's nothing there. There's nothing but peels. There's nothing actually at the center. But we think that somehow we're going to peel all this back and eventually we're going to get down to the root. We don't. It's more like shark's teeth, which simply keep growing. They have 3 sets of teeth. One's they're using, one's on deck, and one's just outside of the gum. You break off a tooth, this one moves into place, the one outside of the gum goes on deck, and another one pops out. Right? So it's constantly regenerating. The sense of a separate self will constantly regenerate the guilt. It will regenerate the shame. It will find new reasons to do it, new ways to do it. You can't help it, right? Let's not muck around. Let's just go right to the source. Let's just go right, put the axe right at the root, to where it is. You are not the separate self. You are the conscious awareness that has wrongly identified with it. You've never been anything but the true self. You never could be anything but the true self, because the truth is the truth. And the truth doesn't change. So if you have a true self at all, you got it now, you always did, you always will. End of story. So any thought to the contrary simply needs to be denied. It's not true. And this is just your direct seeing where this is coming from. This is not some idea that you're having. It is direct seeing. Whoa. Let's see. I get it now. Thank you. Good, Paul. Excellent. Wow. Wonderful. Love making short work of these ideas. Claudia, hello. Is spiritual waking basically the ego becoming awake in the dream we call life? P.S. I've really enjoyed watching your answers to people's questions. You are a fantastic communicator. Well, thank you. Thank you. Again, the you that is a fantastic communicator. Do you think this body mind is actually making this stuff up? Where the hell is this coming from? It's coming in the same place that jazz musicians' licks come from, right? It is just, it's true because it's true. It's just true. You recognize it's true because that which is recognizing it is the same thing that's speaking it. It's not the ego waking up in the dream. That is not what awakening is. What awakening is consciousness waking up to the fact that it's not the ego. That the ego is just a name given to a bunch of thoughts and feelings and emotions, and none of those are actually you. Right? It is the thump, this thing that takes place. Oh, I thought I was that, I'm not. I'm not that at all. Matter of fact, the whole structure of me being that and limited and finite and separate isn't real. It isn't true. And so I have stepped out of the dream. Right? I'm not actually in the dream. I'm aware of the dream. Right? See, the dream is only when I think I am the person in the dream. It's kind of like a lucid dream, right? Because Greg is still going on, right? GP is still here doing his thing. He's talking and all of that sort of stuff. But I know that there's nobody there, right? That it's just a form, right? That it's just music playing, and it's just going to fade away. It seems a little more solid and substantial than a note, right? But it isn't, and it's going to fade. Matter of fact, it's faded a bunch of times already. You know, this body is not the same as when this whole thing started. So no, it's seeing that you're not the ego, and that in fact the ego doesn't actually exist as a thing, only as a thought projected on a bunch of things, like my example in the beginning of the mirage. The desert's there, the heat, the sun, the sand, the dryness, the heat radiating up from the sand, distorting in the atmosphere, the air, all of that's there. The oasis isn't there. That's projected on what actually is here. What is here? Everything, all of this. What isn't here? The egoic mind. That is just a thought. And when you see that all of this is just life happening, this is the universe, then the ego just kind of dissipates, and you realize you're just this open, spacious, conscious awareness that doesn't have an ego. And it's not that you're not aware of the formation of ego, but it's like, yeah, okay, that's fine. So rather than try to describe what is the awakening, I urge you to just turn to that in you which is the most awake, that which is conscious of my words. Give that your attention. And notice how the habits of the mind constantly want to present an image of you, some kind of form, some kind of personality, some kind of character, some attributes. It can be a physical form, it can be an emotional form, it can be mental patterns, it can be belief systems. And notice that every one of those is simply a thought form being presented to you. And no thought form can contain you. So keep bringing your attention back to the one who's experiencing, and become really adept at noticing how that impulse to identify with what's being experienced is what creates the person. And when you do that, as you do that, this will become less and less interesting, less and less intimidating, less and less dominant, and you'll find yourself sitting right in the heart of awakening, because that's all it is. Oh, I'm not that. I'm this unknowable wholeness. Suffering falls away. You just notice it. It'll happen. So rather than talking about awakening, I urge you to awaken. How's that? And it's not hard. Yeah, again, the mind will say it's hard. Lots of people, it's really hard. No. How could it be hard to be what you actually are? Yes, it takes focus. It takes earnestness. It takes attention. It takes curiosity. It takes wanting to do it. Yes, but it isn't hard. It's just have to be consistent. Consistent, consistent, consistent. Thank you, Claudia. Waltz. I get it, but I feel like I get it, but I feel like this is one of those cases where you have to choose. It can't be both. On one hand, I know and understand what you say, but on the other, it's contradicting, because for this body to exist, I have to take another life, eat, drink, and there's this duality between these. There's an apparent duality, right? But that's a sense of separation that is being projected on simply what is life. Why is the fact that this body has to eat and drink and, hopefully have a little fun, right? Um, how in the world does that make duality? Duality is thought. It's just part of this constant, what we call eating is just the way in which energy is constantly recycling itself, right? Boom, boom, back and forth, back and forth. And of course, all the energy in what we're eating actually came from the sun. Right? The energy got stored in the plants, right? Or stored in the meat. I don't eat meat, but it got stored in the in the plants, and we ate the plants. And so it's like it becomes a character for the I mean, look at the interrelatedness and the unity of the system, and you'll see that it's not a duality. There is no duality in that sense. Duality is the sense of separation. Without the sense of separation, there is multiplicity, but there's no duality. You see that one manifests itself as many, but each one of those things that is a many is inexorably connected with the whole. And the whole is not static. It's constantly changing, refreshing itself. Right? So you're not taking another. It's just a thought. I have to take another life. No. Eating, drinking, sleeping, all of those things happen on their own. Nobody's doing them. You're not doing that. You think, God, I'm really going to make myself hungry today. Let's see. At 10 o'clock, I'm going to get hungry. Right? Go put on my can. It just happens. And it happens really almost arbitrarily. It seems to be kind of consistent. I'm a little hungry today. I wonder why. Right? I shouldn't be hungry now. It's only, it's only 11 or it's only 10. Right? Okay, I am. Right? It doesn't obey any timetable. It's not part of my, part of the makeup here. So notice that the contradiction is all an approach in the mind. The assumption of a separate self trying to find unity. You don't have to find unity. You are the unity. You simply dispense with the obvious falsity of being a separate self. You just keep examining it until you go, okay, there's nothing and no one there. I'm not that. Right? Then what am I if I'm not that? And what is all of this? Because it's not separate. I've been acting as if it's separate. So I've defined it as separate. I've given it all these, but all of those have been characteristics I projected on everything that I looked at and said it was separate. Now I'm looking at exactly the same thing, only I'm not looking anymore through the eyes of separation. I'm looking at them through the eyes of oneness. Same thing. Now this thing is no longer outside of myself. It is within me. It is no longer something else. It is me. But not me, and somehow I'm trying to make them two. Oh, that me is gone away. I'm not that. So I'm actually everything. Right? There's nothing that doesn't include. Right? Because there's only one. Right? Which means that me and this apparently something else, but not really. It's kind of like you've heard of the banyan trees. A very unusual tree. They're the only tree that does this, that actually roots from above, not from below. The branches go out. You've probably seen these beautiful trees with these vines hanging down. They're kind of the Tarzan vines, right? The vines grow out of the branches, the top of the thing. They grow downward. They hit the ground and they take root, and then they grow their own trunks. They'll literally go over other trees. They'll take over entire. I think it's like 50 square miles or something like that, is the largest banyan grove. And if you walk in, it looks like this. It's 50 square miles of trees, but it's actually one tree. One tree. You can the original tree from where it started. It looks like there are many, but there's only one tree there. There's only one. It looks like that. And because the mind is so convinced that there's many, it can't see the oneness, of course. It can't see the oneness. Mind is dualistic by nature. It has to make subjects and objects. But you're not the mind. You're consciousness. You're quite capable of perceiving the oneness in it, which is exactly what you're doing right now. And I'm running out of time, and it is Father's Day. And I'm going to go spend some time with my sisters here, and my son and my granddaughter, and my sister's partner, and my son's wife. And so we're all here. And so I'm going to just kind of scoot here quickly here through. Let's see, continuous discontinuity, but the magnificence of the instrument that it assembles in pure stillness. Amen, Paul. Cobra Paul, let's see, you offer the best explanation of the ineffable. Thank you. Well, thank you. That's beautiful. Thanks, GP. So helpful. So there's no need such thing as enlightenment, not as an absolute fact. But I love the fact that Buddha refers to the personal realization of Buddha knowledge. Don't think, there's no such thing as enlightenment, because then you'll be, to whom, right? To the sage, there's no such thing as enlightenment. To the separate self, there is, right? So, and this is the process of consciousness divesting itself of the sense of being a separate self. That's the only way I can put it. And yes, ultimately, the entire Buddha experience, the entire enlightenment experience, is itself just a dream that has happened on this infinite ocean of awareness. But don't let the mind grab that and turn that into some kind of a spiritual platitude. Let the sense of discomfort or yearning or anything that's causing you any kind of suffering be your guide. When that's gone, then you can calm down and think about it a bit. Thanks, G. So helpful. So helpful. Great. Agree with you on choices and thoughts happening spontaneous, several milliseconds before we become aware of them. But then again, our awareness and imagination must have some purpose. Oh, absolutely. It's highly creative. Of course it has purpose, right? But the purpose isn't an absolute purpose, right? I mean, if my purpose was to sit here and do this video, I would be doing it even if there was nobody ever here. I would just sit here and talk to nobody. I don't. I answer questions, right? So the purpose arises like anything else. A purpose arises, it's temporary, it's with, the particular set of conditions, and then it disappears. There's no ultimate purpose. I'm getting a little faster here now because I'm kind of bringing it to close. Happy Father's Day to G and all the dads. Have a great week. Love, Sarah. Thank you, Sarah. Much thanks for the beautiful satsang. Sending love from Ava. Thank you, Ava. What's the best practice to see the ultimate nature of reality? Whoa. Well, become adept at this inquiry, right? Become really adept at seeing the seer, for lack of a better word. You can't actually see the seer. But to become more and more interested in the seeing than in what is seen, right? Become more interested in the ocean than the fish. Right? All of our attention is about what we're seeing and how we can change it, make it better, how we can improve on it, make it more functional, happier, all of that. It's all on what is being perceived. We rarely turn towards the perceiver themselves. We just assume, well, the perceiver, yeah, that's it. And we have this image of the separate self. We don't question it. Take that attention and that curiosity and bring it home. Go right to the heart of you, to the one who's actually seeking, the one who's looking, the one who is experiencing, and become totally enamored with that. Because in fact, it's way more important than what is seen. Coming to know the seer is orders of magnitude more important than what is being seen. And in fact, you can't even know what's being seen until you know who's looking. because it's going to be until you know who's looking, they're going to be seen through tinted and dirty glasses. When you know who you are, everything becomes crystal clear. When you are not a separate self, then nothing is separate. Everything becomes one with you, but not in some kind of new age spiritual kind of thing. It's simply a self-evident fact. So that's it for today. Thank you all. Sorry about the problem. I don't know what it is about YouTube, but they haven't taken me off the air yet. So and thank you. Who made the donation? Thank you to whoever made the donation. Let's go back. Vess. Thank you, Vess. Thank you so much for that. And I'm going to have to do a little research just to find out how to actually get it and use it for doing this. So, love you all. Thank you so much. Namaste.